Hey, good morning and welcome to my workshop for Forbidden World for Jewish Mission, Missiology. Sometimes I know you hear, missiological concept or missiological things, but the fact is, well, it's kind of a word that we don't talk. My name is Edward Kim again, and I work in Berlin. I'm past of Big Yeshua Gemeinde Fellowship. It's a Jewish and that's my base. And now I do a lot of ministry for Ukrainian. 1 year, or even though that's just temporary ministry, because God led me in that way, which I didn't plan. But after that, I found that more than 100 refugee church planted for 1 year. That was amazing to see what happened. Today, what I want to talk is missiology. In Jewish missions. I want to start with one question. Who can explain what missiology is? Anyone? Yes.
The study of mission.
Hallelujah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Yoel.
Welcome, everyone. Stating the obvious here. You're welcome.
I want to have some more discussion than just bringing information. So I want to read fast what I wrote so that I can make clearer and simpler on my statement. So, since since the Christian mission to Jews began in London in early 19th century, with a few evangelical Anglican creating London Society for promoting Christianity amongst Jews, which is CNJ, you know that. So this is actually what you see on the PowerPoint. Question. They have been doing the mission, mission to Jew, but terminology mission or missiology has never sounded friendly to Jews even until today. Really. So the research for Christian mission has been broadly developed and shaped many effective mission strategies with the help of missiology for the various cultural and ethnographic targets in the world since then. It's been more than 60 or 70 years the history of missiology. Right? The study of missiology has helped with understanding of culture, worldview, and the biblical application in the local culture of the mission target. For example, cultural contextualizations, as friend, he used yesterday. Contextualization is one of the best inventions for missiological study. It has helped break through so many cultural, theological barriers of many ethno groups. The concept of contextualization is one of the best inventions of missiological study. Right? It has helped break through so many cultural, theological barriers, and until today, there are a lot of mission organizations and missionaries are using it. Actually, that's a C5 strategies, C6 strategies that our brothers talked yesterday in France, what he's doing. So I believe that this powerful, the contextualization strategies are really powerful and influence the missions, in many areas of the world. Nevertheless, missiology has always been an unknown word for Jewish mission until now. Right? In fact, there are a few scholars dealing with kind of intercultural study, such as Tobias Zaleski or Richard or some others. However, we cannot avoid the fact that as of now, we don't have enough professional voices to make a powerful historical echo in Jewish mission. Agree? And this is a very crucial issues, I believe, because we are facing enormous challenge in the Jewish evangelism in the era of globalization in 21st centuries. As you see, today the world is flipping by second, maybe less than a second. In this light speed of cultural social changes, Jewish mission today has burdensome challenges on all fronts. That's what I see. The following issues have become especially strenuous question for most of Messianic Jewish ministers. You can see, this question: how do we deal with a secularization flood powered by technology in 21st century? Do you have any question? Do you see what is the engine of globalization and how it changes your community, your daily life? Do you know that? What kind of engine and motor it has? What is your counter strategy of Jewish mission against the cultural synthesization of our enemy? I don't know even if you have ever heard of the terminology cultural synthesization. Have anybody heard of this concept? Wow, what is that?
Culture. It's the way in which we take the culture and add it to and can make it part of our faith.
Similar.
Yeah.
Very close. Thank you. I will explain it.
What is SNS?
SN, social network.
Social networks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Social network service.
Yeah. How do we deliver gospel message to our younger generation who are addicted to social media and brainwashed by it?
There's no bias in that statement.
No.
Once I remember, I talked to my daughter, what you're saying is wrong, it's not biblical, you have to check again. She said, okay, I will make a fact check. Do you know what she did? She did fact check on SNS. That's what they're doing. And she called it fact check. And then, how do we communicate with people who has a multicultural worldview through the globalization? I mean, today, teenagers, we just had a teenage teens camp a week ago, for Ukrainians. And it was amazing to see because we brought a bunch of Korean American from Virginia and worked together. And what really surprised me is they are talking same language culturally. One group from Virginia, the other group from Ukraine, from all Europe, and they are talking same language culturally. What is it gonna do? And how can we deal with ideological wars between the ethnic groups, between cultural groups, between the new and old generations? Does your congregation have any answer about it? Do we know how many cultural or ideological or ethnic groups in your community, near your church? Do you know that? And do we know the right keyword in their cultural, ideological, social context to bring the gospel, right gospel message to them? Do we know how to open the door to gospel for our multicultural neighbors with a globalized identity? Your neighbors, you will find the neighbors, mom and fathers from different nations, children speaking in different culture and language. How you talk to them? Do we know how to open doors to gospel for our multicultural neighbors? And do we have any long-term mission strategies? This is the biggest problem that we have now in the Jewish mission. Do we really have any long-term mission strategies to transform our community through Yeshua, which can penetrate their cultural, social, ideological, ethnic context? As I know, I served in the Jewish mission over 30 years, and David Zadok is actually witness, since 1991, when I came to Israel, and that's how I studied. And until today, what I see in Jewish mission is very simple. Begin with evangelism, ends with evangelism. That's it. What else do we have? Tell me. Oh, disciple making? Yes. Reason training? Yes. Hallelujah. What else do we have?
From the point of view of a pastor, you have care of the flock.
Yes.
Sick people, dying people,
Yes.
mentally ill people,
Yeah.
marriages, burials, pastoral care.
Yeah. But how it works in your, context of your community to bring transformation to them. That's my question, not individuals. Okay. Most Messianic Jewish leaders will probably not have an answer to these questions, and many of them will probably not understand even what the question asks. It is because missiology is completely foreign or too Christian for them. Nevertheless, globalization in the Jewish communities in the world is inevitable. And I believe everybody agrees about this. While the concept of Jewish mission today has been stuck on evangelism for individuals' transformations. Furthermore, most of Messianic churches and ministers don't have any clue about the cultural, ethnographic, social change in their ministry conduct. Am I wrong? That's my question. This is one reason that yet they don't have a mission roadmap for next 10, 20 years for your congregation, for your area, for your nations. Okay, we are not talking about one person or two person, one family, two family. Okay, missiology is about the transformation of entire society. That's what we are talking about. It's bigger pictures. Okay. Then what is missiology? I don't think I need to explain it, but simply I will explain it. We have a different concept of mission and missions, and I will skip these things so that we can have more time to talk. But you can search on Google what is mission and what is missions, how it is different. And my professor, Dr. Schultz, actually categorized the mission, mission as an expansion of kingdom of God, mission as conversion, mission as a church planting, mission as making disciples, mission as crossing boundaries, mission as sending, and the Old Testament. Yeah. So what is missiology? There's many different explanations, but what Charles Benengen, the professor in Fuller School of World Mission, explain it is very easy. Missiology is a multidisciplinary discipline. So it combines, as you see, missiology contains every humanity studies, sociology, anthropology, psychology, theology, everything, because that's the world where we are living, And I remember, once the president of ICB, I talked about the missiology, and he said, "Oh, we don't need the missiology for Christians." And you know who I'm talking. And he has a Canadian wife from Canada. Okay, so how do you talk with your wife? That's missiology already, right? You need to talk a lot. You need to have a lot of cross-cultural issues. How do you deal with it? How do you deal with your children who are born between Israeli and Canadian? Our daily life is in missiology. Every day, you have to deal with it. Whether you want or not, you are in. You just don't recognize it, right? So, the benefit of missiology is, as you can see, clarify our proximity to or distance from the center, Jesus Christ, and ask whether there is point, blah, blah, you can read, Simply saying what missiology does is, it shows you the bigger picture of your community, your target. And it helps you to understand from every perspective, language, social, cultures, ethnographies, psychologies, everything. That's missiology delivers you, just a minute, I will finish, we'll talk later. That really helps to understand our target better, but not only see the target. It helps to make a right direction of mission and a right strategy for long term. That's what we need. We didn't have a long term of roadmap of Jewish mission. Do we? Do you in Israel, David?
Yeah.
To some degree, yeah. But,
I mean, that every congregations together, working together.
yeah, we have the national pastors and
I know, but what roadmap you have? That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
You have gathering, sure, everybody has gathering.
but nothing beyond that. I mean, nothing related to what you're talking about.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Because, we'll be gone someday, and our children should take over, right? What roadmap you can give them, to take over and to continue our missions? Do we have such things?
No. But that's because we don't have denominations.
Right.
We don't have denominations. We don't have a structure.
It's not about the denomination,
But it
it's
is.
about the cooperation, working together.
I understand, but we don't have structures
Exactly.
in which to function, and denominations provide that structure outside of Israel.
Well,
Well, we are working on having some denomination.
Inshallah.
No, I mean,
yeah.
we are working on that.
And I want to show you some, some example in Israel. Okay? This is part of my research. An example of social analysis of Jewish identity in Israeli society, which is written by Professor Ben Raphael in 2006, and it's book in Hebrew, published by Open University. You can buy it, and I highly recommend to all Israeli leaders to read it to understand their society.
What is it called? What is it?
Huh?
What is the book called?
It is called, how can I translate?
Can you just say it in Hebrew?
Yeah,
To just say
Yeah,
it in Hebrew.
זהות יהודי ורב תרבותי.
Jewish identity in a multicultural background.
yeah.
Context.
That's a title.
And who's the author?
Huh?
Who's the author?
The writer.
Ben Raphael, Professor Ben Raphael. And it's
Open
two volume of book in Hebrew, that didn't translate it. But what is interesting from him, okay, this is actually extended Jewish identity that he defined it. Okay, if you can see post-Zionism, the born American secular Judaism, Canaanitism. Have you heard of it? You're living in Israel, I know.
The Bond, is that the
Yeah.
German group?
Well, we put all the pagans in one cube, so.
Yeah. So as we see, we have 11 different identity, and what their difference is all, explained like it's all,
Excuse me, does he not have anything after post-Zionism? He stops at post-Zionism?
No, he's talking about the now.
Yeah, but after post-Zionism, there's an after post-Zionism in Israel, so it'd be interesting to know. He doesn't mention that at all?
No, no, yeah. So now I want to have a little discussions, okay? And my book will come, and then you can take a book. Actually, just example, a sample of book, and WIP and stuff will publish by end of this year. And I hope that this is based on Israeli cultural context. So, but it can apply to any community in the world. And this one of theories, strategy, mission strategy, but we'll talk about later. And what we are talking about, okay, how do you see your community? What do you understand from your community? Okay, what you're working on? How do you understand your ministry in the context of missiologies? Do you have any ideas?
Yes. So we actually developed a workbook that all of our teams have to use. And it's a workbook that involves both an extended period of observation, conversation, recording our input, until we arrive at what we call insights. Yeah? Things within the culture that are true of everybody in that particular subcultural group in the city that you're trying to reach. As we develop those insights, we then begin to develop a list of what we would call idols that exist, both the near idols, the ones that people are conscious of, and then the ones that live behind they're not so conscious of. And then we talk about how we're going to structure our gospel presentation so that it both connects with the parts of culture that are actually in line with Scripture, and those parts of culture that go against Scripture, so that we can begin to engage them. But that's as far as it's not as gone as far as what you're saying. But I'll be honest with you, I'm not too sure what organization has the resources to engage with all the cognate disciplines that you're.
I don't think.
Is it based on cities or culture? Because you mentioned something about cities.
No,
Teams.
so
Teams.
within our city, we recognize that within each city, there are
What
a
city
number
did
of
that?
subcultures.
Jerusalem.
And so we identify,
So
yeah,
it's
but we
city
identify
under
one
the city.
subculture.
So it's city and then under the city.
Yeah, so for example, in Jerusalem, I'm trying to reach free-thinking Jewish people within the city. Artists, poets, people who want to engage with thinking outside the box. And that's a subculture, right? There's no way I can reach all of Jerusalem. Yeah, I need different teams reaching the different parts of the city.
You need to do it fast before they move to Tel Aviv.
That's true.
הלוואי, אני אעבור איתם. But yeah, but that's how far we have come. It's based off, loosely based off Tim Keller's Center Church book, which is probably the model on which.
Then how do you see that what you're doing, what you're doing can impact your community to bring transformation?
So the goal is to create a space within that community where the gospel demonstrates that within Jesus you will find what you're looking for, but to a greater extent than you ever expected, and challenges those things that within this particular community are actually causing breakdown and frustration. So that's the goal, and then obviously that will lead to a development of community. I think it will eventually lead to church planting, but that's yet to be seen because we're still in the early stages.
But I think that that's to his question, which is I think is different from the work, because I've used this in France as well. It's been more, from my point of view, that it's not so much about the transformation, it's more about us and our message. How do we make our message a message that is pertinent, that speaks into the issues that our target audience sees or does not see? And how does the gospel, how do we change the way Jesus speaks and ministers so that it's actually relevant to the subcultures God has called us to minister to? Which is different, I think, unless I misunderstood your question, Edward, where you're talking about how do we bring transformation to those cultures, which is a slightly different, they're different words in any case, so I don't know if the meaning is the same, but for me it's different words and a different kind of ministry.
But when you're communicating the gospel into that community, you're assuming that when it enters into that community, there will be a transformation, right? And so when I'm explaining the gospel to them, I'm also explaining the consequences, what's going to happen, right? Because if you follow Jesus, then this will be this, right? That's part of the hope that I'm communicating. You're taking what they have there, and you're saying you're looking for justice. We'll think about all the protesters in Tel Aviv. You're looking for justice. You're looking for these things. But in Jesus, you will find a justice that you can't possibly imagine.
I understand that. So you're saying it's the Holy Spirit's job once we've done our job. But I'm asking Edward if that's an answer to the question that he's asking, and I think it's not.
Actually, partially yes, but it's what Missiology does is looking at macro perspective first. It begins with a macro perspective, big pictures. Looking at, let's say, Haredi in Piscatel, okay, Ramon in Jerusalem, okay. This is my target, okay. That's how I look my target, not the individuals, okay. Then how can I bring the gospel to them and to transform this community, the village or area of Piscatel. And I have to analyze, the entrance, where is the entrance, what is the most effective, and then I go to micro perspective. So we move from the macro perspective to see the big pictures, and I analyze every micro, issues to find the right directions and right point. That's how we see. So what you're doing, and actually what most of Jewish mission, what you're doing, they start from the micro point, like a family, like a first individual, then it tries to go out and make it bigger. But the problem is especially in the globalization, it doesn't happen. Why? Because the speed of change of society is too fast. That's why I don't use contextualization anymore. We don't have time for contextualization anymore. Yeah, we don't have. Yeah.
So what's the goal? When talking about transformation, what do you say is the goal?
Well, my theory is my own theory. I don't know, but that's why we need a forum. We need a forum, and probably we'll do for the first forum in May in the North American LCJE. One day before we'll talk about that. But my theory is I do use what our enemy is using.
Social media.
It's a cultural synthesizations.
What?
Cultural synthesization.
What is?
You know what they are doing? For example, homosexuality. Okay, just an example. It was forbidden word to say just a few decades ago. Then how it became known today? Just you woke up one day, it was there. You didn't realize that it's just invading in the diffuse among society slowly without recognizing. That's how cultures are mixing up. The stronger cultures taking over the weak cultures. Okay, and that's what cultural synthesizations, and that's what internet is. That's what technology is. And we have to do the same way, as a counter strategy that we can penetrate the world. Otherwise, churches, congregation, families is already taken by those enemies' strategies.
But you mentioned about LGBT and how they kind of penetrated. Well, at least in Israel, they penetrated to the media, not necessarily social media, but the TV and radio.
That's what I'm talking about.
And others.
Yeah,
And now
they
it's
just
social media.
yeah, just in their perception, it was a no, it was forbidden, but by media it brainwashed, and suddenly people think, oh, it's okay.
But the problem is that
But it was a matter of, this is a long-term strategy that began to change social image in language in the 60s, social image in the 70s, come up with a great term in the 80s, 90s, gay. Who doesn't want to be gay?
That's right.
And now LGBT, all of a sudden, it's a beautiful assortment of letters that doesn't spell an acrostic.
Brian, there's some people here who don't know what gay means or meant before, so you're saying, who doesn't want to be gay?
Well,
We're asking ourselves questions about it.
But the point is that it was a long-term strategy.
It is.
And it's been successful because they did it, the movement did it step by step, changing things. And the Messianic community, we don't, we're not, we don't have, we could at an LCJE meeting come up with a strategy for the next 25 years of how to make Messianic Jews, Jews for Jesus, whatever we want to be an acceptable term, so that it becomes a nice household term. But still people want to call us missionaries. But we don't have this long-term strategy that has continuity.
We didn't have.
As far as our mission, our missiology.
We'll talk about it, yes.
But I think
it's
the
also-
Pew report that came out a while ago shows there has been a change within the Jewish community. In the 70s, nobody would identify
I was thinking-
Jewish believers, and now, 35% of the community will.
But it's I don't know. I don't find myself more accepted. I don't find myself more accepted as a Messianic Jew in any society that would. Oh, you're a Messianic Jew. Congratulations. People will have a thing, but in general, it's still you're an other. you know, we're not a normative part of society. Maybe
But
maybe a micro
And
society.
it will be until Jesus returns, because the majority of the Jewish community does not identify.
No, that's the point. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I wanted to just say,
Yeah.
when it came to the LGBTQ movement, there's more to play than just their activism. For those of you that are interested, Carl Truman wrote a wonderful book called The Rise and Triumph of the Modern Self,
Yes.
in which what you see is that culture in general is going in this
I still don't know.
Yeah.
Because it's smart.
Exactly. You know, the process of culturalization, this becomes shorter because of technologies.
That's an aspect of it, but there, you know, I mean, thinking from Thomas Friedman, the Lexus and the olive tree, it informs me that there are two forces in society. You know, the Lexus being the modern technology, which is rapidly moving and changing, but we also have the olive tree of tradition that is in the back of our psyche as well, you know, and so there's a tension today, as you say rightly, we're focusing on the fast-moving technology and how it's affecting the culture, but there is another element that is still there, and not to take more time, but even I look at the Ukrainian-Russian war, which is very old school, European, you know, into modernized technologies, and they're engaged in an old school war that, to me, in some ways demolishes a lot of my models of modern society, because Ukraine was very proud of their progressiveness, and Russia, and yet this old school war is
Old
threatening.
school war, but the teenagers didn't talk about it. You know, American, Korean American, Ukrainian, they talk just Instagram.
So
You know what I mean?
But-
So the world that our children, live in, is totally different than where we used to live.
But Effie, I think that war has a strong social media element to it. The war that was won first by Russia was that Ukraine became Nazi and stole from us, and there's this huge media and social media thing that you yourself have witnessed in Israel that has caused Russians and Ukrainians, brothers in Christ, to be against each other because they believe different things, they believe a different story. And to go back to the homosexual issue, I remember one thing that changed in Israel, at least from the limited exposure I've had to it, that march, always that they did the gay pride march, wore people down, especially in the religious Jewish community. They chose to do it in Jerusalem probably on purpose. And then one year, a young woman gets stabbed. And that young woman wasn't, according to the story, wasn't homosexual, wasn't a lesbian. She was there to support her friend who was a lesbian, but she was stabbed by a religious Jew. Now they're talking into deep things of Israeli society. Those religious Jews, and look at this poor girl just trying to, true Israeli, trying to support her friend, and then all of a sudden the story shifts what people feel about the movement. And the story shifted, created this animosity in Russia and Ukraine. That story happened on social media.
Yeah, well, the media feeds into it, but I'm saying the war is still old school.
Absolutely.
I agree. And the media isn't going to.
But there's a story that took place at the right moment, and we have a story as well.
Exactly. Actually, that's the story that we want, spread. Whether teenagers recognize what they're reading or not, okay, and certainly now we can be a counterpower of these cultural synthesizations. Okay, we can make another cultural synthesization through the Gospels. This is my theory, but that's why we need a lot more talk and discussion about this, because it's, as I said, it's unknown field for Jewish missions. And I just want to, what I'm trying to do is initiate, the forum or talk that we can have, continuous discussion to develop. And ultimately what I want that every mission field that you are in will have some kind of a long-term roadmap of your missions. That's my wish, you know. So yes.
So this is long-term macro, right? It's not micro, and it's long-term.
Well, we start from there, and then we go down.
And is this macro? Right?
Yeah, that's the macro. To just it is a community, okay.
So he's saying is it micro or macro? You're saying this is
Macro.
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 It's a macro.
So my question is, if you look at the Book of Acts, Paul, and his missionary journeys, what do you think? And I'm not 100% sure. Was he thinking in macro terms? I mean, obviously, you know, he wishes that all would be saved, right? He says that in the courtroom. I wish that all would be saved, minus the chains. But or was he more? You know what I'm trying to say? Was he more micro? Was he just going, being spirit-led, and God's the harvester, you know, or God's the grower of the harvest. I'm not worried about that. So
what I see, actually, that's partially written in my book. What I see is, a lot of missiology talk that Paul used contextualizations in his mission, to which, like an example, talking in the what is it?
Areopagus.
Yeah, he talked about unknown God.
Yes.
But what I see is actually in different way. Okay, it was sitting, surrounded by community. That's what I see, not individuals. He was talking to audience, big crowd. So then, after his preaching, the outcome came. Some believe, some not. Right? That's macros. And wherever he goes, Paul went. He went to synagogue, Jewish community. What is synagogue? It's community, right? And he preached there, right? That's what I see. Yeah.
But that happened very quickly oftentimes.
Oh, yeah.
People would come to
Sometimes,
faith
yes.
immediately. It wasn't a generational, 25-year, whatever.
No, I don't think so. I don't think we have 25 years to do that anymore.
Even Timothy, Paul says in 2 Timothy about the scriptures that your grandmother and your mother knew. So, I mean, obviously Timothy's a Jew.
Yeah.
Timothy's a Jew, so there's sense they knew the scriptures as believers in Jesus.
Yeah.
One gathers. So there is generational
Trickling down.
as well.
Right. So, what I suggest is, how we can continue this talk. I mean, to have, first of all, I think we need to create some market, okay? Everybody, so that everybody can come and talk on these issues. And we need I tried actually to make a symposium in June, Missiology symposium, but I gave up after participating in the LCJE North America in Miami. I gave up because we don't have manpower. We don't have professional voice to talk about it. Okay, that was my big frustration to find it, but that's why I want to build up from the scratch. We'll have a forum, as I mentioned, in the May 3rd, probably. It's just, I guess, I'm talking with Dan and also Helena, who organizing, probably May 2nd or 3rd, we'll talk about, and I want to invite, one day before to talk about with a real research of your community, to see what do you see about, your target area, just, make a picture of your target area, what kind of people, you have there, you know, what kind of language they are using, you know. Just say 10 kilometers around your congregation, let's say. You know, what do you see?
10 kilometers.
Let's say 10 kilometers,
I
okay?
live in Jerusalem.
In northern Israel, so I see Lebanon.
Sounds 10 kilometers then.
There's something you mentioned before. You asked, do we know what cultures we're speaking into? So we have 50 to 70 members in our congregation. Of that, we have something about 25 different languages that are first languages for the people in the congregation. I've done, that's the extent that I mean, at least I know that we're extremely diverse, right? But in terms of knowing how to target specific cultures within that group, I've done no thought. I've simply, my teaching is all exegetical, so it's, you know, just expounding on scriptures. I've deliberately tried to stay away from topical because it leads, because cultural things can get a lot more in topical studies than they can in exegetical. So I've done nothing specifically to you know, cater towards different groups. At the same time, obviously something's, you know, obviously multiple. There's a lot of people coming, but I don't know what they hear. Right? I basically have a hard enough time knowing what I've said, let alone knowing what they're hearing based upon what I've said. So you're talking about a much larger strategy of how do we engage in the city and the culture around us.
Even your community.
Yeah.
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 Begin with your community. Yeah, that's the beginning.
Yeah.
You
Okay.
know. Then that will help because let's say you know there's congregation or your congregations. Okay, how many people you know in your community knows where you are, what you're doing?
I mean, people outside of the congregation.
Yeah, or not. I mean, around your neighbors. How many of them you know that what you're doing?
Yeah.
In our case, actually a lot, because we have a big work with the Holocaust survivors.
Yeah.
So, and, you know, our congregation actually, they come from 12, 13 different cities. And we work with 7 different Holocaust survival clubs.
Okay.
So to some degree they know how much they know and how much they doesn't really know.
I mean, your neighbors, your congregation neighbors.
We're in industrial area.
Yeah, that's the question, you know. So because we are in a light and sword, and we are lighthouse, right? Your congregation is the lighthouse of your community. And how many of your neighbors see the light? You know, then how we can approach them with what kind of language and message? You know, I think that will help to understand, to set up the right direction of your ministry, you know, and then some project or strategies you can develop. So we'll send out, you know, email again through the LCJE and North America next year. But what I'm planning is I want to have this kind of forum in every regional meeting one day before, you know, Europe, here, America, so that we can have more discussion and develop the research of our your mission. You know, it is very important because as what you saw, you know, I don't want really you guys all in these situations. You know, the globalization is chasing you out, and you don't know what to do, and you're running away. And this is the exact situation that the most of congregation ministry we have, I believe. You know, we're trying to survive, we're trying to expand, but our view is very limited. Jewish mission is still staying in the 20th century. That's what I see.
Still what?
The Jewish mission is still in the 20th century. And we need a more. We need a better way and a long-term strategy. And that's something your
Who would
children
you
can
say
do.
is outside of Jewish mission? Who would you say is in the vanguard of mission with globalization, mission with cultural synthesization? Would
You can find 100,000 books about this.
No, but I'm talking about mission.
Yeah.
Missions, not the literature, not the missiology, but missions that are
Organizations.
implementing.
What organizations? Churches?
Oh, there are a lot. But in the Jewish mission, I know.
No, I'm asking outside of the Jewish
Yeah.
mission. Who would you say, if we could learn from another mission, among,
Most of organizations, they do. My organization do it too. And most of organizations, as I know, as I met in the Fuller or international conference, they're talking about this. The best example is the globalization discussion in the IWASU meeting. I will send you, I will send the book they published their discussions. And this discussion has been for 2-3 decades already. We are not. We don't. Yeah. And they are really well aware of it, and they make a lot of strategies, and you can read. Yeah.
What was their name, you said?
There was a IWASU meeting, global international mission society or something like that. I forgot. I will send it to you. They had a meeting about the issue of globalizations. But there are tons of books about this already written by missiologists, various missiologists you can find.
yeah, I learn more from examples,
I know.
I'd like to see what another mission's doing
Yeah,
among,
that's actually
among the Buddhists and how they're applying globalization there, and then that's interesting.
That's what I'm saying. The book is actually a report from the
Oh.
ministry. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, all things you can find. So my point, yeah. Anyone? Any questions?
To get a context, I'm trying to wrap my mind around. What we try to do is isolate sections of society, get through isolating segments of society. They're shifting and their identities are changing, and how to connect with their identity as it relates to the gospel, so they can understand the gospel. I do have a question about having many cultures at once and trying to give simple tools to simple people to take advantage, to connect to the person that's next to them. As part of this, it's relevant to everybody, right? The Great Commission is not only specialists. So how do you look at that kind of filtering? How do those things relate as far as solving the bigger problems, having bigger conversation in Jewish context, and then also integrating those in basic discipleship? Is that a relevant question, I guess?
That's why we need to meet and talk.
Okay.
We have to work together to find the answer. Yeah, I cannot be the person who can answer for everything and every reason. I cannot. But we need to talk, and we can learn from others, each other's, from experience and from research we do, and then we can learn from each other.
But I will say that the result of one of the impacts of globalization on society that I've noticed is that people who look apparently from different subsects of your city, interconnect because they're all connected to one subculture. And I will choose my favorite hobby, playing Dungeons and Dragons, right? You will find Orthodox Jews and secularists and people from all, but they'll come around the table and they'll play the game, right? And so they connect because of this thing. And so you have a way of interconnecting. So you might find that there is actually something that connects all of the 25 languages because all those people have something other than Christ, yeah, that brings them together in one cultural
So
space.
that is still contextualization, and
Yeah.
what this guy's saying is that contextualization is a thing of 30 decades ago, which is great, and the world moves so much beyond that. And that might be a good tool just to meet
That's-
people, but that's still contextualization. He's saying we need something greater than in order to reach, so that we don't become antiquated, and it's not just, how do we make my gospel message understand by this subculture which loves Dungeons and Dragons? That's just contextualization.
Well, does this relate at all to how marketing works? They identify audience,
Absolutely,
they
absolutely.
relate what is working, how are people responding, and,
But yes and no,
okay,
because the gospel doesn't market.
I'm in.
Right.
I'm in.
Because what the marketing does is it says, let me find something in you that I can hook, right? And then pull you to my thing. Whereas what we're trying to do is engage transformation. We're trying to inject that love and let it seep in.
Okay,